All right, welcome back everyone to week 8 of the North American LCS. I'm joined by Meteos from Cloud9 here today. Congratulations on your guys' win that you just got. You've actually now, with that win, just locked up top 2 in North America, so you're in Season 4 now. Do you feel much better?
Yeah, it's a pretty huge relief. In the beginning of the season, there's always relegation and stuff to think about because, you know, the way we got into LCS was through relegation, so it'd be really stressful going into that from the LCS side. And being top 2 is just, it's a huge relief.
So now that you're guaranteed a bye in the playoffs also, are you guys going to use the remainder of the regular season LCS games more freely with your champions? Are you going to try anything new now, or are you just going to use it how you have been?
I would like to try some new stuff, but I think my teammates are tryhards, and they're not going to let us do that.
Is there ever a thing where you don't want to try your new stuff in the LCS because you don't want to show your hand?
We have a few things that we've never run in LCS that we still have in our back pocket. Not necessarily to hide it, but just in case we need to run it. So we might bring it out if we have to, but I'll just see how the drafts go for the rest of the season.
Okay, well, so in this game that you guys just played, it's a little bit more of a tanky composition than we've seen from you guys in the past. Was there anything specific that went into having both a tanky jungler and a tanky solo laner?
There wasn't, we didn't go into it with that plan, but they banned Nasus, so I really wanted to get Zac that game because those are my most comfortable junglers, obviously, because I play him a lot. And then Rumble was banned, who's Ball's most comfortable champion, so he just wanted to play Shen randomly. He goes through sort of bipolar phases with Shen. He really loves him one day and then really hates him the next day, so today he wanted to play him, and so we had him play Shen, and it went really well for us. Yeah,
today was definitely a good day for Balls on Shen. It was not so good for Sneaky and Lemon Nation up there in the top lane. Banning out the Ashe seemed like it did put them out of their comfort zone, and they also got camped a lot. Do you want to go into any further explanation?
Well, it turned into a 2v2 lane, which we didn't expect. I guess we didn't have enough words in the beginning of the game, and we thought they would go for a dive, which is why I also went for a dive top. But then they ended up defending, so we were a little behind in the beginning. So they lost a little bit of XP to me, which I guess made the lane harder for them. And Twitch, Zyra is really not a good 2v2 lane against Jarvan and Elise. That's probably about the strongest 2v2 you can have as far as a top laner and jungler. So it was a really hard lane for them, and they did get a little bit behind early, but they did their best to farm up and not get too behind. And then me and Balls were able to snowball bot a little bit, and we came out about even in the laning phase.
With you guys running so much Ashe Zyra, do you think maybe your duo lane got a little too reliant on the vision that's awarded from having the seedlings and the hawk shot? Or was it just a coincidence of the 2 versus 2, like you said?
I don't think we're too reliant on certain heroes. We play a lot of different stuff in scrims, and it just so happens our last LCS matches we played Ashe a lot. But now if it's going to be banned, we'll obviously have to play different champions. And I don't think it's a huge issue. I think they just misplayed a little bit.
Well, yeah, you guys were fine. You said earlier in interviews that if someone on your team is having a hard time, then the other guys will just pick up the extra weight and they'll be the ones to carry. It looked like Hai was on a mission going after Scar every single time. What's with his fascination with just 100%ing Scar every time?
Well, Cassidy's a really huge snowball champ, so we wanted to shut him down as much as we could. And Hai's a really good Zed, so we thought if we could send Zed against Cassidy, it would do really well. And Hai did a really good job of shutting him down.
All right, well, congratulations again to you guys for the win and locking up top 2. Up next, we are going to have Coast vs. CLG, but first, we are going to throw it back to Jat and Freak on the desk.
Hey, thanks very much, Kobe. And as you said, it's time for that second match of the day. That is Team Coast versus Counterlogic Gaming. And now, even though CLG is coming into this match having won 2 of their last 3 matches, so far this summer, they've had more ups and downs than a Zac Ultimate.
Yes, they have, Freak. Welcome back to North America.
Thanks.
CLG's inconsistency this split is displayed by their records against the league's best and worst teams, really. They've got a winning record versus the top 3 teams combined, if we look at Cloud9, Vulcan, and TSM, but they have a losing record against the bottom 3 teams, Velocity, Coast, and Curse. So this is about CLG playing to the levels of their opponents, and then actually a little bit more so.
Yeah, and so CLG are hoping to play to the level of a top 2 finish right now, and Team Coast, they're looking to kind of elevate themselves as well because they're sitting at 7th place. They need to get some wins quick if they don't want to be sent to relegation.
And Team Coast has been struggling a lot lately. They were on a 6-game losing streak until they beat Velocity last week. But despite their struggles, it's not over yet. They're still only 1 game out of that final playoff spot.
Yeah, so if Team Coast wants to make waves in the playoff, they're going to have to work out some kinks, though, including struggles with their top laner, Zion Spartan.
Teams have been focusing Zion Spartan in bans basically because it works amazingly well. He had one of his only 2 wins without Riven when he played Gragas last week. I mean, 2-12 on anything but Riven means not good things for Coast or Zion Spartan.
That's true. So, and of course, you know, he's been having a rough time, but also recently their bottom lane's been having a bit of trouble as well. Don't Mash Me has the fewest kills of any AD carry in North America with 54. On the other hand, his counterpart, Doublelift, has the most of AD carries with 105.
And this is somewhat a reflection of how the teams play because Doublelift always gets channeled kills, whereas Coast relies on carry, assassin, mid, and top laners so frequently. But the good news for this matchup is that so far this summer, Coast bottom lane's actually done really well against CLG. Don't Mash Me has his best stats of the summer against CLG. He's racked up 11 of his 54 kills, and he has his highest KDA against CLG than he does against any team. But then we have Doublelift, who's actually only gotten 5 kills in total against Coast with a 2.0 KDA. So even though the kills are so different in the season, against the teams, it's almost flipped around.
So every once in a while, you have a team that is Kryptonite here, and this is the third beginning of the summer between these teams. Don't Mash Me and crew, they're actually confident they can make it 3 in a row by avoiding the late game and keeping Doublelift from harvesting his farm.
So against CLG, our record's 2-0 so far, and we know their strategy. They just love late game.
CLG in 71 minutes pulls it out.
I'm definitely confident in the way we play the game, and we definitely just lost the game off of some really bad calls that I made personally.
In general, they all love to farm, and in particular, Doublelift. If you're able just to shove them out of lane and like make them group, they can't farm.
So I feel like if we just push forward and make the right calls and just keep playing the game we play, then we'll be up doing good things.
Well, Chowser says they're going to be doing good things here. We'll see if they can do it. Let's check out the starting lineup before we get into the game. On the blue side, it is Team Coast. Zion Spartan in the top lane, Nintendo Ducks in the jungle, Shifter in mid, Don't Mash Me on AD carry, and Daydreamin' on support.
And on the red side, we have Counter Logic Gaming. Yen in the top lane, Big Fat LP in the jungle, Link in the mid lane, Doublelift on AD carry, and Chester on support.
So coming into this match, you know, the players are talking about it a little bit. Team Coast, right, you know, the stats don't lie, the record doesn't lie. They're 2-0 against CLG. Some of their best performances are against CLG. Their one Jinte game, or yeah, you know what, one of their few Jinte games was against CLG, and that was a win as well. He did really awesomely. Like, it's weird that you just had these Kryptonite teams once in a while where they always get the win there.
I think a lot of it has to do with just CLG being inconsistent, and then Coast being inconsistent as well. We have to remember that a lot of these Team Coast games were against CLG were near the start of the season, where Coast was doing fantastically. And obviously they didn't play CLG during their 6-game losing streak. Yeah. So we look at this matchup now and we're thinking, oh, a 7th place Team Coast against a CLG team who's in 3rd. But that's not what it's been like for most of the season. In fact, when they were playing earlier, Coast was actually looking like the stronger team.
So these guys have done, you know, a much better job than of turning themselves around by the end of the season. And of course, you got to really hand it to a lot of the new CLG guys, because we've seen a lot of roster swaps. There's actually been tons in Europe. There's been comparatively less in North America. But Nien and Big Fat LP, who are new to their respective roles, and I mean, I would say at least performing pretty well in that.
And it's always difficult when people have to make total role swaps to completely new things. I mean, AD carry versus top lane is a huge difference. Big Fat LP, you wouldn't think of him as a jungler since he'd been a mid lane player really his entire career. And he hasn't been farming, that's for sure. He's been definitely just jungling and coming out for ganks and late game.
It's I was going to say something, then I just coughed instead.
I got something else for you.
Oh,
Did you know?
I didn't.
Actually, I've been doing some pick ban stuff recently. That Twisted Fate has been banned 14 of the 20 games against Link.
14 of 20. Which
is actually the second most a champion's been banned against a player in the North American LCS.
What's first?
It's in the TSM game. And if you tune in then, Kobe will tell you. He didn't want me to give it away. He got really upset. So I'm sure you can find it out.
You're only naming the team.
Yeah. It's a regional champion.
Jeez.
That's kind of too much.
Yeah, good job, chat. Way to ruin the surprise.
There's another fact about this game, though.
Yes.
Did you know?
I didn't.
That of course, I think you did. But did you know that, surprisingly, Nintendo Dex, who's huddling up right now, he is the player.
Coast.
Too soon.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. He's the player that has played more of one champion than anyone else, and you wouldn't expect that.
3, 1, 2, 3, coast!
There we go.
It's been Jarvan 10 times.
Jarvan 10 times. They actually built the Cataclysm right there.
We haven't seen that in the in-game Did You Know stats.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coast actually builds the Cataclysm before the game starts, and then Nintendo harnesses that when he goes into the game.
I feel like they got to work on that because there's no CLG members in the Cataclysm. That's why they're losing.
Oh my god. Hey, they've been beating CLG. Don't give me that one. Well, at Coast right here, though, Champ Select has begun, and unsurprisingly, they banned that late game AD carry from Doublelift. They banned the Jace away from Nien. And wow, would you believe it, Zion Spartan's Riven got banned out as well.
And the Gragas, which is like the champion he had played that wasn't
one of his two wins.
The win. They're targeting him a little bit for good reason. The Tristana ban as well was actually the most banned AD carry against CLG, and then that now makes 15 of 21 games where Link has not been allowed to play Twisted Fate.
So over 70% now at this point. The Zed dropped away from Shifter. So just like last game, the Elise locked in early on, and it's going to go to Zion or Nintendo.
Yeah, and did you know that in all but 2 games, Elise has been picked or banned in the North American LCS? I don't know the 2 games that he wasn't picked.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
it stays true,
which
is why he's first picked right now. It's just because it's such a contested champion, and Nien has had some of his best games on Elise.
Yeah, so here we go. No Spider-Man here for Nien, and they're like, they've got to assume, because every team knows what bans they're going to bring out coming into a game. Very few are surprised by their own bans here. So Nien, I think CLG would have come in this one expecting they're probably going to first pick Elise off of this one. We know what their likely pickup is, and they're prepared to grab everything else here for Nien and Big Fat and whatnot.
Yeah, and the last couple weeks also, CLG's had those pick ban like sheets that are printouts that Monte Cristo, their coach, has been giving them. So hopefully things are going according to plan right now, and hopefully they're following the process because, I mean, there's been some complaints from Monte in the past that they haven't been doing that, but hopefully they got things locked down now.
And also, speaking of the earlier topic about players making strides mid-season, we have the Chowster Thresh coming back in. They're feeling more confident pulling this champion out despite no other support bans.
And it's actually his most played support. This is his 9th time playing Thresh. Every time I say this, Kobe's like, he's actually really good at Thresh, but I still feel like he's very inconsistent on that champion. But with the Zac and the Thresh now, those are 2 of the highest control, like midline teamfight control champions they could pick early, which is a good start for CLG as they usually revolve around protecting Link and Doublelift.
Well, speaking of someone needing protection, though, look at Coast picking up the Twitch here for Don't Mash Me. Now, thinking like way back when, in their initial qualifier, they ran a lot of Twitch back then with like sort of Divine, but they've also grabbed an Ahri for a lot of pick potential as well.
I like those picks specifically for Coast. Shifter does excel on champions who are capable of assassinating. That's why he's played so much Zed this season. And then getting the Shen just now for Zion Spartan is tremendous for them. His victory, one of his victories against CLG was because he got about 400 armor against CLG and just tanked Doublelift the whole game.
So we'll see if he can tank Doublelift this time around. Then the last lock-in as well is going to be Daydreamin's Nami, one of his more popular. So the lineup is here for Team Coast.
Wow.
Counterlogic Gaming ready to protect Doublelift with the Orianna pickup. And now it's time for the AD carry.
Every once in a while, you look at a team comp and you just say, that's a lot of good things. You can't really explain, first off, like why it all works well together, but it's just a lot of scary champions that Coast is being locked in. Whereas when you look at CLG, it's kind of the same thing. Like both of these compositions have a lot of synergy with themselves in a sense that they have the Ballista combo, Zac Orianna, which a lot of teams actually aren't using together anymore. They have 2 areas of threat instead of just putting it on top of himself. It's so much teamfight control from CLG here.
You know, some people actually have complained that it should be pronounced Ballista to help like emphasize the Orianna part of it. Just a completely random aside.
No, that's a good point.
So Ballista, and it's going to be, looks like another blonde hair champion here for the CLG lineup. It's going to be Doublelift on Ezreal, so got a bunch of assassins. So I'm going to go kite you guys.
I agree. I think Doublelift's Ezreal is his strongest AD carry. Every time he gets blue Ezreal, since they take the game out long enough, he just seems to add to control. Like whenever CLG can get enough teamfight control, they seem to win games. And if you look at this composition, they have that. Like they don't have a huge amount of upfront damage, but I think they have the ability to outlast Coast. So I prefer the CLG composition here, even though Coast composition, as I said, they look really scary.
They are really scary, and I just like the fact that Coast will be locked up for like 5 straight seconds during this team comp. Like you get knocked up by Jarvan, and then Zac hits you twice, and Orianna shockwaves you, and you're like, at some point we can start doing damage, but I guess we're dead. And
that's actually what they need to keep Elise and Ahri in check so that they can't get through. And also, I feel like Doublelift has enough smarts to outmaneuver at least Zion and Nintendo as long as CLG can keep Shifter's Ahri in place.
And he's been actually, I would say, some of the most successful on Ezreal. Look at the All-Star game. His pentakill there was on Ezreal. Actually, just last week, he got a quadra kill on Ezreal. He's been putting up a lot of great performances on that champion. I feel like for someone to outmaneuver enemy champions, Double Lift Ezreal is one of the top ones for it.
He's just so good on that champion. And this game is so important for both of these teams. 7th place, but only 2 games back from 3rd is where Coast is sitting. And then CLG 3rd place, but 2 games back from 7th. The winner of this game, they're just going to collide with each other very soon if Coast manages to win and CLG loses. So both from a distancing perspective and a saving a season perspective, it's a big game for both these teams.
Yeah, absolutely right. If Coast wins here, they tie Dignitas for 6th. They actually basically get themselves into the playoffs at that point if they can win out. So here we go, guys. Coast in the bottom left, CLG in the top right, wearing the red. And it's going to be time for these teams to determine where they want to go early on in the game. But maybe they need some time. They're gonna take a quick break. They're gonna pause this one out, figure out what's going on right there. But
it's taking a drink of water. It almost caught me. I was glad that we were doing this. These guys trying to get their systems fixed up right here. I feel like we haven't had many delays lately.
No.
I feel like it's
way to
been pretty
jinx the
sad.
chat.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And specifically, the delays are never that long.
Thanks, chat. Please, thank you.
They're just restarting his client. He'll be back into the game fairly quickly. Let's get back to the story of these two teams a little bit, though, because CLG has made so many changes, even in the past year or two.
Yeah.
And even with all that, they're still playing somewhat of the same style. I feel like CLG actually doesn't adapt to new strategies that quickly. It's a slow process for them.
They do make some of their own, though, which I do like. The Season 2 Regional, they had that cool, like, promote, like, pseudo-jungler strat, which is really cool. Once in a while, they bring out something completely unique that no one else has done before. Also, actually, and this is something else we were talking about before the games earlier this week, actually, is CLG, despite a lot of the roster changes, have kept a really large fan base.
Yeah.
Like, people are fans of CLG, not necessarily, like, fans of Chowster or Big Fat LP, because aside from Chowster, I mean, I guess now you have an original member again when Big Fat LP came back, but they've changed the roster a lot, and the CLG fans remain strong.
Yeah, and even though Double Lift isn't like a super original member, I'd still consider him a core member of CLG because he's been there for so long. These guys are very experienced players, and sometimes that makes it difficult for them to have this kind of outside view. And it's something, to CLG's credit, they've done a very good job of this split, saying, we suck right now. Every single one of them, when you talk to them in interviews, they're very humble about their own position right now, despite them being so experienced and having so much international experience and big tournament experience. They're very humble, and they know they need to do a lot to improve.
No, we'll see if they can keep doing that, of course. They are top 3 right now, which is a good spot for them. They got, they were, I'm like blanking, top 4 right at the end of the last split.
The last split, they finished 4th.
Yeah.
Lost to Vulcan in the Velocity in the relegation match, and then they beat Azure Cats in the relegation to stay in. So they're actually in close to the same spot they were last split at this moment in the season.
Which is interesting to look at too, because you've added Cloud9, who have kind of dropped everyone one spot down.
No.
But Nian's about to face check, gets spotted right there. They charm him up. Will they go for more damage? Looks like not too much right there, forcing CLG back from this one. Looks like they didn't burn too many cooldowns on the big tank.
That could have been really dangerous.
Yeah.
If Daydreaming was in range for a bubble. Because he could have timed that just right to lock Nian down, but specifically because they didn't get the bubble, they didn't want to focus Nian in a level 1 fight just because the blob passives are so damn hard to kill at level 1, and there would have been too much distraction in the level 1 fight that I don't think they could have converted that into a winning fight.
So then good news all around by these guys. Coast, though, walking right through a ward, and they don't know necessarily that they've been standing on top of it. They've been pinged out. CLG knows exactly what's going on. And actually, you can see the champion models right there. That's the view of CLG. They know exactly what Coast are up to, that they are still kind of retreating down to the side.
I feel like Coast has a lot of superiority at level 1 if they want to try to find a fight. Because even though CLG has Chowster's potential death sentence from Thresh, that's no match for Charm Bubble combo if Coast were to catch anyone. Because Zion Spartan could just taunt for good measure at the end and finish locking them down. That's why I feel like CLG is invading a lot. There's very scattered wards throughout the map here, but at the end of the day, I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't really either. Of course, CLG, though, looking to put pressure on his left side blue buff. Zion Spartan is here to help defend Zion, but they might force the smite out of this one. Heck, they're going for the flay. Nintendo down to half HP right now.
That was actually great level 1 planning by CLG here, because Coast does not have enough aid for Nintendo to take this blue buff. Chouster alone is stopping him from getting that, and Doublelift isn't even losing farm. That was all made possible because Big Fat LP completely soloed his red buff. Huge props to CLG there at level 1.
And actually, at the same time, Nien is actually soloing the Wolf camp in the top side of the jungle, knowing he's fighting a 2-on-1, saying, I don't even want to take XP. I'll get this, recall, come back.
Yeah, we have to see how this impacts the rest of the CLG game plan, because that is something that is definitely pre-planned at level 1 and was definitely executed well. Even now, Big Fat LP going straight for blue, maybe Nintendo can make something back, because instead of starting at blue buff, like if Nien could have taken this blue buff and stopped Nintendo Dex from getting the blue back, but because he didn't, it actually seems like they're going to end up just trading.
He does want to defend this, though. The problem is he is vastly outnumbered, even worse than the other blue buff here. So Daydreamin helping out Nintendo. Nintendo did burn his smite, though. So random steal, potentially possible, I guess.
I think it's possible, but far too dangerous for Nien to go for that. Plus, Nien wanted to get his XP. What is developing, though, is the level 1 Zion Spartan maybe getting tower dove by CLG here. They throw the exhaust down. They got to go.
They got the flay. They got the knockup as well. A lot of damage. Desmond comes across, but he taunts across the enemy team. Chouster, one hit from dead. If he had ignited, that was a kill, but he might pick up Big Fat LP. No, he gets out of turret range. Zion Spartan survives a 1v3.
That was very clutch for him. I have to say, not the cleanest gank by CLG. Since Zion Spartan taunted Chouster while he was in turret range, Chouster got away with, like when I checked his health, it was at 8. Which means he would have been a little bit lower because his natural health regen would have taken him up there. That's got to feel really good for Zion Spartan to survive that with just the Doran's shield start. Yeah. By the way, we're paused because apparently Zion Spartan says he's lagging. So he did all that. Just, you know, it's lagging.
With 10 ping instead of 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely really, really good play. And we talked about him in the pregame, saying you remove his Riven, and he's had a really rough time without it. However, I mean, just look at this now, right? Gets Shen, one of the champions he has one with, makes a really good play in a 1v3, opens up a lot of opportunity for the rest of his team now to make some moves, because Chouster's got a recall, Big Fat LP's got a recall. Maybe he defends one of his lanes again, but this gives room for Nintendo to do whatever he wants.
It's actually fairly rare when we see teams do the 3v1 push on either side that one team will succeed greatly and the other team will fail at that. And that's actually the situation we're in, at least right now, while we're in the pause. Maybe when we come back, things will be different since Zion Spartan is still very low and hasn't gotten any creeps. But in the situation of this game, it looks like there's going to be almost a full turret advantage for Coast based on Zion Spartan's ability to survive that gank.
And of course, we'll see what ends up happening with these guys. Of course, for what it's worth, Shen, low kill potential. Maybe Big Fat stays around. Like maybe he actually goes for pressure there and they find something else. And of course, we're going to have other lane matches to think about as well. We've seen Zion, okay, he survived his matchup. We're going to have to see what happens with Mash Me and Daydream, and if they can knock down Nien. Of course, has the Zac passive. He'll probably survive dives decently, I guess. And then you've got Ori versus Ari, which I'm trying to think about that matchup. I feel like that's just kind of even, just mages fighting each other for a while.
I think that matchup is definitely interesting. So the Link versus Shifter matchup, Orianna, when played well, is definitely one of the strongest laners in the game, but there's more roam potential from Shifter. So I definitely think that's going to be a lane where Link will out-farm Shifter, which is actually what ManCloud did to Link when CLG back when they played Vulcan. And I think it's what Link's going to try to do to Shifter once again here. And then Shifter's really going to have to make the game play by moving around.
So we'll see if he can move around properly. Of course, he does have the Elise jungle, who we saw Elise do amazingly well for Kiwi Kid when he was top laning for Dignitas just last game. Made a lot of good early moves. And we know Elise is one of the good early junglers in general. Should have good gank presence. Should be able to do a lot. Nintendo says he actually focuses on getting his team ahead. He focuses on ganking, focusing not on himself, but on his teammates. So I gotta feel like that gameplay is available. And when you have a good late game AD carry like Twitch, ganking for him a lot, or shutting down Doublelift, either of those should be really good for the team.
Absolutely. We can see the Riot Tech crew trying to fix Zion Spartan's problem here. Team trying to remain calm. It's always a bit of a momentum killer for these guys when they're paused like this. So they have to, as you can see, they're not even discussing the game because you can get penalized here for discussing games during pause. So it's a very relaxed, reset your own mind situation here. Zion Spartan knows the situation he's in this game. And he's probably just thinking about the overall matchup here. We talked earlier, Don't Mash Me, not having his best of years. Lowest AD carry kill in all of the LCS. Whereas Doublelift is highest AD carry total in all of the LCS.
Yeah.
it's a bit of a rivalry to step into. It's like lowest versus highs. Yet, as we mentioned in the games that they've been playing against each other, Don't Mash Me's had a fantastic track record.
Yeah, so, and it's just getting the right kinds of ganks, getting the right sort of setups here. You can see him looking relaxed, looking around. I actually like the video of Edward looking around where it's like he's looking for a place to ward and like the Pink Panther music is playing in the background. This is the Don't Mash Me equivalent right here. He's like, is there a jungler? Is someone ganking me right now? Do I need to arcane shift away? Should I stealth? And he's just making sure that he's safe right here. This is map awareness.
I remember when Double Lift said he wasn't playing well because he didn't have glasses.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't see the champions on the screen. Now he has glasses. That's Kelby management right there, being able to
highest kills in LCS for an AD carry.
Is there an Ahri there? Oh, no, there is an Ahri there. That's a terrible situation.
I should dodge that skill shot.
Double Lift has been so good this season.
Yeah.
He's
number 2 in kills overall.
It's a strange thing to think about, like, relative strength of superstars, because you can't have all the superstars on one team, because so much of these guys' success comes from how much farm their team is willing to give them in a game.
Yes.
You can't just have everyone with 400 CS. You have the one split pusher, and he gets farm. And for CLG, that's Double Lift.
Yeah. Well, or if you play CLG games and they're an hour and a half long, then you can get 400 CS
Then everyone
per
can
person.
do it. That's happened a couple times.
So a lot of carries eventually there for the Counterlogic Gaming. And there we go. The intended gank on the right-hand side does pay off. Turret goes down. However, look at that. Even with the gank failing, they got one back for CLG.
So let's recap what happened just a little bit before the pause here. Zion Spartan was 1v3 against CLG, and CLG tried a 3-man gank. Chouster almost died. Big Fat LP almost died. But because they got enough damage on Zion Spartan, they were still able to take the tower afterwards. Meanwhile, Coast didn't even attempt to dive on Nien. Nien never gave them the opportunity, and they're just now both split pushing up the side lanes.
And look at this matchup, because Chouster, because he's been forced to recall, is defending. So a 3-on-2, an awkward 3-on-2. It's top lane support fighting together on this side. You cursed us.
I did.
Way to go, chat.
I'm actually sorry about that, Freak. Everybody can blame me for this. I was saying earlier, it's like, we haven't had many delays. And you're just like, yeah, you jinxed it. And then I decided to keep going. I was going to push the envelope.
Short delays.
Yeah, really short delays. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Zion Spartan.
It's okay. Well, it's interesting because when you have the 3-on-1 lanes, we talk about how short the laning phase is. Right? The lanes drop down, they get disappeared, someone freezes, and the teams have to go make a bunch of big moves, and the laning phase disappears because the turrets are just dead in about 4 minutes. Well, this time, we get a nice long laning phase.
Yeah.
Like 15 minutes long.
So, we've just gotten word that Zion's computer is going to be swapped out to end these issues.
Yes.
But that means we have time to talk a little bit.
We do.
What do you want to talk about? I want to talk about, like, I guess I should let you first.
No, go ahead.
I have a topic I kind of want to talk about.
Go for it.
I want to talk about the evolution here of the game we're seeing in North America and how, like, the dominant strategy of a lot of the teams in the world is kind of like the way Cloud9 plays, if we're looking around the world in the leagues. And it's actually what a lot of these teams have been trying to emulate, and the teams that are okay with it. So to expand on that a little bit, what I feel like Cloud9 does a lot is they pick as strong lanes as possible. You have very strong skirmishers in the jungle, so things like Jarvan and Elise, who can specifically fight very well in dive scenarios or in the 2v2 lanes that we see so much of. And the teams that haven't adopted that strategy have fallen actually pretty far behind, I feel like.
It's interesting because, and this is what Cloud9 has said about, like, following the Korean teams and their favorite picks and whatnot. Like, I always want to ask, like, what level of strategy is because the best team happens to be using the strategy and everyone emulates the best team versus what is actually the best strategy. Because I remember, like, way back when Counterlogic Gaming was the best team back, like, pre-season 1. And a lot of teams were like, man, CLG is, like, sort of unbeatable. Like, they're just ahead of us. Like, I don't even know what to innovate. They're just going to win regardless. And you know, CLG sort of determined how the game was played. And you look over at Europe in Season 2, and you had very different play styles.
Yeah, they were the ones who were doing the AD carry and support in the bottom lane.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, you're right. In Season 1,
I look back to Season 1.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, it's fine. So yeah, Season 1, Europe was like, well, hold on, you can run AD carry support bottom lane. I mean, I'm thinking back to even WCG, where, like, and this won't make sense for anyone who wasn't around back then, but, like, Garen Tarek was, like, the best bottom lane ever.
Yeah.
Because you would stun and spin on them, and they would just die no matter who the champion was. And the Europeans were like, well, no, you run AD carry support. Like, they knew exactly what champions were going to get picked there, and I was like, yeah, go take that. Go take Garen Tarek. Go take a Mumu. That's fine. Here's our other comp that beats it really hard.
Yeah.
And had done the research preparation.
Yeah, and I apologize if we're going through this too fast because we're really excited about this topic.
Yeah.
But
so
that's the specific thing, because to get back to your point of there's the dominant strategy and there's like the best team, but I also feel like that's open to counters. And we were talking with Monte Cristo a little bit about this, about the Korean scene, because for instance, the last finals where we had Flame versus Ozone.
Yeah,
there
Azubu
was
Blaze versus MVP Ozone. Yeah.
Yeah. Azubu Blaze. Yeah, I was saying Flame.
Yeah.
Flame and Blaze are kind of the same thing, man.
I was really annoyed when he changed his name because his name wasn't Flame until he joined Blaze and was like, I'm just gonna make a really trolly screen name.
That guy's a jerk.
He's
also amazing.
He's
at League of
really
Legends.
freaking good.
But no, to get back to the story, Flame and Blaze were very good at manipulating minion waves, and it was almost a bit of an evolution of like the fast push strategy, where sometimes they'd often use it against teams, but the whole way that their dominant strategy was to have Flame split push and become very powerful. And if Flame wasn't doing that, then they'd end up failing. So what MVP Ozone did is they picked a very specific counter to that strategy in which they took Zed and just went and killed Flame over and over again and 3-0'd them in the best of 5 finals, which is actually what I feel like the strategic diversity as we move on and teams are trying to take down these dominant teams is what they might be leaving themselves open to. We just haven't seen it yet in North America because no one's been able to counter Cloud9.
And that's actually an interesting point because this is a weird stretch, but bear with me here. It's almost CLG-esque, like early split or like last season where like CLG had Double Lift as a carry and then everyone else played support. Like Hotshot and Link were like, oh, we're on Orianna and I'm on Shen and you're just going to keep you alive. Whereas, so certainly like, Balls and High are both kind of playing carries here and Meteos is kind of taking farm from everyone. But because Sneaky's playing supporty AD carries, tends to play supporty AD carries.
Ash,
playing Ash, right? You shut down High and you're like, oh, you're down to 1 damage threat. Who's a melee champion on Rumble, so we can kill him in a team fight. Like if you like heavily gank High and then like just get some MR for like the Rumble, like can you kind of like anti-CLG Cloud9? Like is that like a thing?
What we're trying to say here is since Cloud9 and the fast put strategy is all about gold for everyone, for the most part, because they're getting the turrets down very quickly, they're getting the experience on everyone from the turrets. Then from there they're trying to get dragons and just generally out-push and out-farm the enemy. It's a very overall strategy, which is why I feel like a lot of the teams haven't been countering it yet. And what you're saying, playing analyst here, it's great. What you're saying is if a team is just picks one person and shuts them down specifically, then you now eliminate enough threats that you can then focus them?
Yeah, basically.
We'll have to see if that works.
You bring them down to 1. You go heavy assassin, you bring someone out, and you get rid of that lane. I don't run any pro teams.
Yeah.
Like
So the computer has almost been swapped out for Zion Spartan. We will be getting back into this CLG GGU Team Coast game.
Team Coast.
We're thinking about the past. Last split, it was GGU. Now they are Team Coast. CLG has always been CLG.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
The oldest
they're
team.
the oldest team left.
Yep.
Because they predate
In
TSM.
League of Legends.
Yeah, yes, in League of Legends. I mean, there's certainly like the very old organizations like SK Gaming, like Fnatic, who have been around pretty much for the history of esports, and it's great to see them involved in League of Legends, right? And I always like seeing that stuff. I always like seeing when a new organization shows up as well. When you're like, oh man, Navi picked up a team. You're like, oh man, like teams that you recognize by being a fan of esports. It's fun to see them picked up. And at the same time, it's really cool to see the self-made brands. You see the Counterlogic Gamings and the Team Solo Mids be like, yeah, we are completely on par with sort of like the old teams. We've cultivated our talent. We've grown our scene. We've grown our fanship, our fandom. Like, yeah, we're CLG. Like, we're the OG League of Legends team, and it's legitimate. And I love seeing that.
And it's all going to come together in the playoffs and the World Playoffs. But specifically, I'm worried about Zion Spartan in this game, actually.
Okay.
Because he is already the one who's been struggling for Coast. He's 2-12 when he doesn't have Ribbon. And now he's the one who's dealing with these unfortunate technical problems. Like, obviously everyone has to wait, but he's trying to think about the game right now, but he's mainly worried about his gaming rig feeling right to him. And it's going to be difficult coming back into this game. You know, it's like players that aren't good at playing in the rain sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I know a golfer, Lee Trevino, would walk off the course if he saw clouds. He would just quit the tournament because he'd been struck by lightning before, and he was like,
oh my God.
He was paranoid about it, super paranoid. So he would lose multiple gaming tournaments because like his feelings weren't right in here.
Jeez.
And you know, I don't think Zion Spartan's going to walk off because his computer's getting restarted, but things can throw you.
There's a scuff on the right side of this this desktop right here. I've been hit by Splinter before, and I can't play this tournament anymore.
I got a splinter right in between my fingernails.
Oh, that would suck.
Yeah.
That would suck a lot. I've never done that, thankfully. But actually, one thing I do want to point out, though, our awesome like Riot like tools developers, whatever, I don't know how to actually call them. we actually have this tool on the machines here where it actually saves your key binding profiles. And you basically click a button, you say, I'm Zion Spartan, and it replaces all the entire config file in League of Legends. So his mouse sensitivity and video settings and sound settings and key bindings are actually all pre-populated. So it's nice. It saves a little bit of the time. We've just been told we have about 5 minutes left until he's ready to go.
Let's get back to the big discussion.
Back to the big discussions. Okay, so I wanna talk about, though, that Season 2 European scene. Go back to the Counterlogic Gaming Europe versus Moscow 5 big rivalry. M5 tended to win a lot of them. Okay. Right? They invented the heavy counter jungling, the Shyvana, the Gangplank, running in. A mid laner would always push. Galio, Morgana, Cassiopeia, and Mordekaiser were really big for a while.
The pushing mid laner, and then the roam for, at least that's Moscow 5.
Yeah, it was shove the lanes. Everyone could participate in counter jungling. You get guys who are very strong early on, guys like Gangplank, guys like, I'm trying to remember the other good top laners that Darian used to use back then.
Yeah, it was mainly Gangplank.
Yeah. And you had anyway, but it was guys who could fight early on, like Lee Sin was another big one there. Just early game power, steal all the buffs, had this huge gold lead. And it wasn't because you were taking turrets down by having 2-on-1 and 3-on-1 lanes. It was, we'll steal your jungle and we'll 3-on-1 your jungler. And they were able to keep making all these moves, whereas Counterlogic Gaming Europe, now Evil Geniuses, was a very different style. They were hold our lanes up, pick late game scaling. You might take our jungle, you might have a 5,000 gold lead on us, but you can't take our buildings down.
Get their farm.
Yeah, like we have a Kog'Maw and a Nivea's wave clearing.
Yeah.
At some point, we win the game against you.
And what was so fascinating about Season 2, CLG EU, for those of you wondering, was Evil Geniuses now in the European scene. They still have all of the same players in some form on their roster, because Snoopy's kind of doing the bench and not bench thing right now for them. And they were the European equivalent of what Counterlogic Gaming NA was kind of in Season 1, where they only cared about their farm because they recognized if they made it to late game, they would be able to overpower a team. But their fatal flaw, though, was their inability to adapt to the really good teams. Because they were, I have to say, like, CLG EU last season was the most consistent team in the world. Every tournament, they'd be between second. I mean, there was that one they won.
They won DreamHack.
At DreamHack. But they'd be between second and fourth because they could beat everyone except, like, the next tier of teams, which was generally Moscow 5, who is now Gambit Gaming, again and again.
Yeah.
And it was really crazy to watch, where it kind of showed you that if you need to be at the top level of this game, you need diversified strategies.
And this was actually interesting because this is something that, there's 2 points here, actually. So you have a team that's at the very top, like A tier, S tier, but plays exactly one style, right? Cloud9 right now that we've seen, Counterlogic Gaming Europe from Season 2, and to bring up an earlier example, Azubu Blaze, who are like flame split pushes, and they play split push, and flame gets huge. And the litmus test for, are you an S tier team? Are you a top team? This team will do exactly one strategy. Can you beat it? Can you strategize against certain teams and do your research? And for the example of MVP Ozone, they 3-0'd and did it. For the example of Moscow 5 back then, of course now Gambit Gaming, they found a way to do it. They got a bunch of early Guardian Angels and would tower dive you at 25 minutes and was like,
before they were ready.
Exactly. We can just hardcore dive you. We got it. We got it. We can do this. And so they found the strategic adaptations or tactical adaptations to do it. And so here we go, NA scene or you know, any team that gets up there, here's the change we make to get ourselves in there.
And that's what Cloud9 has to worry about as they approach North American playoffs and actually World playoffs as well. Because, as we mentioned earlier, they are playing mostly the same game, and they are the bar right now for the top North American team because no one's actually been able to leapfrog them. And the real question is, who's going to craft a strategy to beat them? Because they're actually fairly scoutable right now at an international level.
Yeah.
And because of how much they've differentiated themselves, this is Cloud9, from the rest of the North American scene, all the international powerhouses that are going to be coming to Worlds, assuming Cloud9 makes it from the playoffs, they're going to be targeting Cloud9 first and foremost for North America. And they got to be ready for that. I imagine Cloud9 is ready for that because they've had Alex Penn as their coach and analyst this entire split. Lemon Nation is like a coach on the field for them because with all his theory crafting, so they should be ready for that. But to me, if I was in Cloud9 shoes, that would be my #1 concern, is having a response to the first thing that beats you, because it's going to happen eventually.
And that's a good point, because back at the beginning of the split, they talked about who they looked to for inspiration, the teams they looked at, and they said, yeah, we watch all the Korean games, and they're implying that Korea is like the strongest region. Like, yeah, we look at their champions, look at their strategies. And Korea I actually like because they've got a lot of top-level teams that play a lot of different styles. You've got the Azubu Blazes who split push all the time. You've got teams that go for these sort of pick compositions where you have like Ari or Nocturne, or a lot of Thresh reliance as well, where you create movement and then just catch someone out in the jungle, and then you use that to kind of snowball forward and make other moves. And so if they're continuing to do the research, which I assume they are, they've got all these different styles to look at and learn from and play from. There's actually a lot of dominant strategies, different complete options in League of Legends.
Yeah, and it's about finding the style that works best for a team, because I've never seen, I mean, some of the good teams like Gamut Gaming when they're at the top, I'd have to say like MVP Ozone right now in the Korean scene, play in a lot of different ways. The computer swap, by the way, for Zion Spartan, this is CLG versus Coast, should be done very shortly here, and we will be able to get this game underway shortly.
Yes, yeah, we'll be there very, very soon. You got the last little lean in right here. I'm trying to make out the iconography on his desktop. I couldn't quite tell if that was the scoreboard at the top of the screen, but yeah, Zion on his way back in. And so you were talking about teams, how many strategies they can play that fit their play style.
Yes,
Cloud9,
it's hard.
It is. It's very difficult to play a lot of different styles. Cloud9 says they have very good team synergy. They're always on the same page. They like to fight. So the aggressive teams, the pushing teams, the let's brawl, Meteos is going to initiate teams, those tend to work, and especially when they are able to trust their initiators and trust the callers, it's easier to be on the same page.
And to get back to this game a little bit, since hopefully we're going to be back into it, we can try to loop in our discussion a bit here. CLG is in that process kind of slowly, but they don't have much time before Worlds. They recently hired Monte Cristo as a coach, so they don't have much time to remake their game. It would seem, though, that they're then going to keep running mostly the same strategies they have with only small tweaks, because you can't completely build the strategy in a couple weeks and have it be world-class. So CLG, we know what team they are.
Yes.
Everyone knows what team they are. It's about tweaking things so that teams can't exploit CLG's late-game weakness.
Yeah, so here we go, guys. 3 seconds to go until the pause is through. We are unpaused, and the game is afoot. Here we go, guys. Chester and Nian trying to defend that top side turret. We had 3-on-1 lanes. We had the outer turrets for the right and left-hand side lanes go down. And here it's time for the adaptation for these guys. Coast making a move towards the mid lane, the 4-on-1 on Link.
Yeah, and they have had a lot of time to think about this. No time to talk about it, though, because they're not allowed to speak during that 20-plus minute pause. And they have to restart themselves here. There's only been a trade in this game so far. It's starting essentially at 5 minutes.
And here we go. It's going to be the Jarvan defending as well. And of course, remember at the same time that Doublelift is still keeping Zion Spartan company on the left-hand side. So Double's actually going to leave right here with 33 minion kills. We'll see him make his early purchases. Vamp Scepter, all right. And the early buys have come in now. So,
all right,
very equal game right here. We talk about this, right? One turret down on each side, no kills on each side. Gold 100 apart. And we have a new reality here. We have a game that's pretty much reset. Lanes can do what they want. Zion could freeze and wait till level 6. A lot of options open for these teams.
Yeah, and they, I've heard as well just now from our producer that they were allowed to talk after about the first 6 or 7 minutes of the pause.
Oh.
So it wasn't just, let's see who can remember our strategy for the longest in the situation in the game. At least they'll have a bit of plans for that. We got to reset ourselves, too, to this game. So it's...
Koreans. No.
It's now about... no, definitely not. It's now about Zion Spartan catching up in his farm,
gets done.
And the rest of Coast working it.
Look at that charm as well. Link the flash forward. First blood, don't mash me. Every skill shot landed there. Coast, wonderful job.
And Coast is actually roaming around a lot right now as a squad of 4. That was the second aggressive mid lane tower dive. It actually looks like they're trying to shut down Link right now in CLG's strategy as Zion Spartan catches up.
Here we go, though. The wave clear, though, from CLG really stopping all that. Even Double's been sort of brought in there with that lantern. So Coast trying to do a bit of pushing, though no one's taking the right-hand side lane farm. Charmlands in a challenge. Holy crap, the damage output. Would you believe that one? Mashed me with 2 kills early on.
And we got to remember, this is 4 Coast members in the mid lane with the ability to chain crowd controls with each other. If they get a Charm, Bubble, or a Nintendo X Cocoon, they just chain 1 to 2 to 3 and get the kills. That's very dangerous for CLG when they're trying to counter siege, and they've lost 2 kills because of it.
Really beautiful stuff there. A huge gold spike coming in there. Even though he's down 7 minion kills, you know Don't Mash Me. He's got more gold than Doublelift right here. And Zion, look at the top laners. Zion's level 6. He was soloing that whole time. And the end is still 4. I assume he's close. Hey, he leveled. Great. He was close to leveling. But a clear advantage here for Zion. He's going to really enjoy that.
And this means farm time for CLG. Specifically when Zion Spartan hits level 6. The ability for CLG to initiate fights safely goes way down.
There's actually something I want to point out as well is a lot of people tend to use like the Shen Stand United as an opportunity to push his turret down, but that turret's already down, so Nian has nowhere to go.
He's just going to farm. He's going to farm.
He is going to farm. Yeah.
As best he can. Nice. He needs to get a lot of farm on that Zac in order to create enough of a frontline like sustaining fight for CLG, since they're going to be most likely going for the high utility outmaneuverability with their overall team comp.
We'll see if they can bring this one out right here. Don't Mash Me, though, has a beautifully frozen lane right here. And we'll see him probably, I feel like he's going to skyrocket in minion kills as the minions keep flooding into him and his waves just keep dying out right here. We'll see if Doublelift can catch up. We talked in the pregame about how CLG just have always had a rough time in the bottom lane against Team Coast. Only 5 kills for Doublelift. Don't Mash Me's been huge overall, and that might just still be happening.
And it's weird because they're not even really laning against each other. Don't Mash Me got the lanes because Coast as a team was able to pick out CLG just in middle as they were grouping up. Doublelift was actually ahead in farm to Don't Mash Me, and he needs his team to help him as always. That's the reason Doublelift has the most kills as well in the LCS. As well, he can out-farm most other AD carries straight up. It's the later game farm where he really gets going.
And speaking of getting going, Nian is actually trying to put some pressure onto Zion Spartan right there. A lot of sustain on Zac keeps him pretty safe. So we'll see if Doublelift can get going. He's now pretty much tied in minion kills to Mash Me, 70 to 72. Mash Me going for the early Blade of the Ruined King. You're seeing that get partially completed for him, but the lane is now starting to push back. So pretty soon CLG will get to play that farm game. So my question is then, because CLG wants to play so late game, do Coast keep trying to make moves then, control dragons and turrets and whatnot?
I'm not sure, actually.
Okay.
I think Coast is still deciding that themselves. They need to figure out how much confidence they have in their own late game ability. Because if I look at CLG's composition, I don't want to go late game against that necessarily. So it does seem as if once Shifter gets a little bit more breathing room in the mid lane, he should look to move around and force the objectives, because yeah, that's going to be the mindset that Coast is in for this game. They have to do that Gambit Gaming versus EG where they beat them faster than CLG can farm up.
They're looking for it right here, though. They had 1,000 gold lead. That's going to be 2,000 gold. Well, 1,800 to be technically accurate here as they take down the dragon, and no contest at all there. Zion Spartan, the blue ward there, or sorry, the pink ward there to keep the vision away from CLG. The Zion Spartan split push there, and Shifter is able to hold up in minion kills so far. So because a lot of that early game pressure, he's actually keeping up to Link in minion kills.
Yes.
Their 80 carries keeping up as well. Heck, actually, everyone has good minion kills here for Coast.
They're doing a very good job keeping pace with CLG's ability to farm, despite all the roaming they've been doing.
Yeah.
It's rather impressive, and Shifter and Don't Mash Me are the ones who are going to have to capitalize on that, because they were the beneficiaries of the roam, and since the farm is equal, they're the only 2 people on the team that are actually much stronger than what CLG has been able to accumulate.
So we'll have to keep a look on these guys and see what they're up to, because Doublelift now is going to make life a bit more difficult for Mash Me. He's frozen that bottom lane, so the rest of Coast have gone to the mid, but only Link is here to defend. However, that Orianna wave clear tends to be pretty strong. I don't know if Coast are going to get a lot more out of this one, and Tendu decides to go for the farm instead.
That's a very difficult lane for them to push, and that's a CLG thing here. We can see Doublelift isn't increasing anyone on CLG's ability on the map right now. He is actually a deterrent to CLG right now while freezing that lane. It's going to turn into something better later, but because Doublelift is in bottom lane farming, Coast was able to take that advantage in the mid lane with the turret.
Beautiful stuff. Then 2-1 on turrets. Now 2,500 gold for these guys. Pick comes off on the match. Will they go in? The Flay comes back. Looks like no kill, though. They don't want to dive this one.
Link is out of mana right now, which is why they could not try a Shockwave to turn that around, as well as Doublelift is still just farming. He's decided the lane freeze is over. He's shoving that up, and he actually has to get safe because there's a chance Coast could have went down for him.
You're right, there's no ward coverage actually for CLG on the right-hand side. Doublelift is going to recall back, but the pressure is still on this turret. Bubble does not quite land on a Chowster. True Shot Barrage comes across. They're just keeping the turret alive though, but now they've got to react to a big minion wave at the bottom side pushing towards them.
And this is just these teams battling with minion control against each other. We know CLG's objective is not fight because they don't want to deal with Zion Spartan stand united. Again, he went with the Spirit Visage and is going to have the cooldown reduction if Coast wants to try to turn anything in. Yet right now, Zion Spartans looks like he's using it reactively instead of Coast using it to go in for fights.
They haven't needed to, I suppose, because everything they've gone for, CLG's not defended it. Dragon they got without having to do anything. Mid lane they got because of the lane freeze. The Zion Spartans had the luxury of getting to stay in this lane. So this is all kinds of good for Team Coast as Zion, he's waiting around on the side. The bottom lane does get cleared out here. Yeah, Coast, I guess they can look again for a push pretty soon. They've got to worry about the mid lane. CLG are pushing in towards it.
If Nien keeps the pressure on Zion Spartan, then CLG is safe pushing up past dead turrets. But as soon as Zion Spartan isn't close to Nien, that's when Coast is going to do stand united on top of Ahri ultimate and go for an initiated team fight. So there's a lot of emphasis on Nien's Zac to keep up close to Zion for a while.
And he's going to stay in that lane. You're seeing the minions not separate at all. Nien stacking health right here. Giant's Belt and Ruby Crystal. Sure, Zion's got good regen with the Spirit Visage, but certainly you're not going to get rid of Nien anytime soon in those fights. And Coast, they're actually grouping up around the blue buff here. I feel like with their lead, they're looking for more things to steal away.
And I don't think CLG has the tools to contest this. They have a ward up, but they're not willing to risk that Ahri initiation that could potentially just be tidal waved and bubbled by Daydreamer's Nami. This is right now a pretty sweet situation for Coast to be in. They're just going to have to find creative ways of getting CLG out of their farm game.
And this is doing just so well, though, still for Coast. I mean, they're finding some openings every once in a while. They've now grown to 2,000 gold up there, and the red buff being taken. I want to see who it goes to, actually. If it's going to be, looks like it actually is just going to go to the jungler. So Don't Mash Me doesn't need it for the lane just yet. Only 14 minutes in. He's going to stay farming. Just a little bit of extra gank power for Nintendo with the slow. As ult comes across. Oh, he got it. He got it. Doublelift stole it. Doublelift, that was awesome.
That was pretty cool.
That was awesome.
True shot, one would say.
Yes, not a false shot right there. He definitely got blue. Great job. And of course, the early Bloodthirst are done as well. Before 15 minutes, you see him, he's got a really, really good minion score, honestly. 136 at 14 minutes or so. It's not bad at all. Certainly very high up there. So Doublelift still tends to be a big factor for CLG in these games. I don't think that surprises really anyone who's a fan of the team.
And he's went with that Bloodthirster variation on the blue Ezreal build. It turns it into the Doublelift Ezreal, I suppose, because he's not, he's cheating. He doesn't have all blue items. He's going to try to make that one work, as he's actually got to run away now because Don't Mash Me's on the charge.
Wow, he's already got Blade of the Rune King. Just jumps in on Chowster, but here comes the pull.
Oh, this could be
not
bad.
quite land. Here comes Shifter, though, on the side. Goes in, gets knocked into the air, but finds Chowster. Now can he find Doublelift? Good Arcane Shift gets him away. There comes the dunk as well from Jarvan. Flashes out, locks Shifter in, but the one kill was picked up. However, they have no minions to turn this one into anything else.
And Coast is trying to force CLG out of their farm lane, specifically Doublelift. But this is now giving CLG an opportunity, and they have to take it to get some of the turrets back.
And you're seeing the damage come down onto that one. Zion Spartan did use his ultimate, by the way, in that last battle. I don't think he showed... Am I just dumb and forgot where Zion Spartan went? He did use the ultimate, but I don't remember if he actually fought anyone
He
in
was
that battle.
bottom lane. He never. I don't think he made it in for much of a fight, but he was definitely trying to ult in.
Okay, okay. So Zion there left to hold up the scraps on that very pushed top lane right there. And Coast, though, still the early mid-game leaders right here, 60 minutes in, have another dragon in front of them. They're going to take this one down. And the bubble lands, guaranteeing no steal. The charm as well. Will they keep going in? Cocoon lands, and they just pile in. Big fat LP falls down. You called it, Jat. CC into CC into CC.
And they're mostly single target CCs too. So if CLG can get into team fights, they're going to be able to abuse that Coast can only get one person at a time. But as long as CLG is playing this farm game, they're individually very vulnerable to getting locked down, which is why the game right now is so heavily in favor of Coast.
So beautiful play then by Coast here to keep finding those openings, just tossing a bubble out, landing it, knocking someone in the air. Nintendo had a really good one a while back onto Link. I do have to celebrate sort of the mechanical skill of these guys to land these max ring skill shots. When you're fighting
and
pros,
the timing too
yeah.
is very important.
Because the thing is, they're also both going to be in range at the same time. Like, no, I'll charm first. You wait, Nintendo. And it's just so cool to see. This is something that feels practice to these guys. And again, finding comps that work, practicing them, being prepared for them, so important.
And both these teams do have the full-time coaches. Elements for Team Coast, formerly of actually CLG, and then formerly of Team Curse. Hasn't been working out so well for Curse yet, but the team itself has a lot of faith, and they're saying they're losing for other reasons. So this is a practice thing. You're right.
Yeah, so beautiful stuff then. Turning themselves on at the very end of the split. You got to remember, though, we're at 2 weeks left here in the summer split, but each team has 8 games to play this weekend and in 2 weeks when we have week 9 here. So you're going to see a lot of movement in the standings for the guys that got ready finally in the sort of 11th hour at the end of the split right here. TSM, CLG both feeling confident. Coast felt very confident. Cloud9, of course, obviously not slowing down. But here we go, a team with coordination, with a good team comp, making moves. It's very good for them.
And if any team knows how to come together late season, it already is Team Coast.
Yeah.
Because at one point last split, they were 2-12. Then they made it into the playoffs as the 6th seed, and then they finished the season in 2nd. So they've been here before, and they've done this. Right now, Coach is in 7th. So this game, as we said before, is so important for them, and they're starting off great.
They are absolutely doing wonderfully here. 4,000 gold in the catch on the double. If Repel comes across, Nintendo gets knocked into the air. The spider leaves the ignite. Oh, the barrier's so good from double. Will he survive? Nintendo has to dodge. Zion picks up a kill before the lantern can land, but Nintendo's been locked up. There comes the Shadow. Will that be enough to keep him alive? Nintendo's been exhausted. Knocked into the air. He's going to go down. Zion Spartan lands the taunt, but he's been forced to run away. It's a 1-for-1. Finally, CLG picks up a kill.
And there is a very slow fight in the bottom lane, but a very fast push in the top lane here. Coast 3v1. Yen can't realistically go in for that, and CLG is in danger of losing a lot of their base here.
4 turrets have now gone down in Team Coast. What do they look for? Because Link actually will get a counter push here. The mid lane turret's going to go down, so CLG finds something. But look at Coast. They're controlling the jungle now. They stole the last blue buff. Now they're stealing this red buff. This is good for them.
Yeah, this is great to watch because Coast is putting such a heavy focus on 2 things right now. Pushing down turrets fast and stopping doublelift as best they can. They're putting most of their resources into fights in the bottom lane and then pushing when CLG comes to support. What that's doing, though, is it's actually letting Link get going a little bit with his 176 farm on Orianna. We have to keep tracking this and see if all this play is worth it by Coast.
You're right. I remember pointing out some of the minion kill scores a while back where the AD carries were far and away above everyone else. While Shifter's been roaming, Link has caught up there. I just wanted to get the numbers out there to say, yes, he has been really growing by 30 or 40 at this point. Master wearing the double red buff. Not super useful aside from the first one, but at least he can refresh the timer on that one.
I think you only get one of those.
Yeah, I don't think they stack. I don't think it goes like to a deeper shade of red.
That'd be kind of cool.
Be interesting. Either way, though,
this is why we're not designers.
This is why we're not designers. You're at least kind of on live design.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Shifter, though, is going to be wearing a nice blue buff for this one. The last one, well, CLG's last one was at least taken by CLG, but Coast have taken 3 of the last 4 buffs now on the map, and they might use that for even more power. It seems like this is a team that keeps looking for fights.
And they need to push the tempo. They're doing a very good job of it so far. But at the same time, when CLG does get a 5v5 team fight, if the map shrinks, it's still going to be a difficult thing for Coast to pull off. CLG is most likely more ready if Coast were to do another 4 to 5-man push up the mid lane and maybe then try to turn a fight around once that single target CC chain starts on somebody. If CLG can let that chain get absorbed essentially by Zach, who's becoming a very tanky man, then the rest of CLG's damage could break through and really wreak some havoc on Coast.
And it's fun to talk about that single target CC chain versus CLG's CC chain because all their major players are area of effect based. Zach, Jarvan, Orianna, they'd love to get in a 5v5 and wreck people. So you're right, there's a lot of scariness available here in the team fight. So Coast, they've got to keep looking for these individual plays.
There is still a lot of emphasis on Coast to do well in this game. It's almost a more difficult composition to pull off when you're running such high risk, high coordination required single target CCs. And it means they have to continue to play well for the remainder of this game if they don't want to give up their lead.
And I think they know Doublelift's on the right-hand side right there if they wanted to look for a collapse. He's walking around some ward coverage. Twitch sneaking around towards the side. Nami as well. Zion Spartan keeps Nian locked up. One of those big players. Big Fed up, he looks for it as well. Zion! Wow, that was Spidey senses. He jumped away from that one. Doublelift forced to arcane shift. Getting hit up by Twitch. Nice ward across the wall by Daydreamin'. No bubble, so no engage here. Coast right at the front door, but CLG are ready to defend.
And how well can CLG hold off this siege? They do not have a 1v1 answer entirely for Zion Spartan. CLG is torn right now as another dragon spawns and Coast is going to be able to take that one because CLG needs Nian to eat the single target CC chain, but they also need him to match up against Zion Spartan and stop him from teleporting in. So he can't be in both places at once, and it's giving Coast advantages.
And Zion Spartan, again, just with the pressure of being on the map, does give them the dragon, as you said. And you're right, the advantages are still growing. The gold lead now, more than 5,000. We keep track of that one. It was 1,800 with the very first dragon, now 5,000 with, I believe, the third dragon at this point. They're certainly getting themselves farther ahead. The 5v5 still something that intimidates them. You notice that they're not diving compared to what for example, like Cloud9 did, where they were diving and starting fights all the time as a 5v5 based team. Coast are taking a different approach to the game.
It's mainly because of how dangerous the dives are against CLG. We even saw in CLG's game against Vulcan last week, where CLG was down close to 10,000 gold near the end of the game. They'd stretched out to about 40 minutes, and Vulcan tried one dive team fight in CLG's base, got 4-0'd, and then lost the game. So Coast knows how dangerous CLG can be late game, which is, I think, why they're not diving recklessly.
Chowster, though, he's trying to get some ward coverage. Can they get in range for a CC? Cocoon! It's going to land. They reveal him, but no one was quite there to follow up. Only 3 members of CLG were around. They actually wouldn't have gotten caught out too hard if they dived, but without a lot of information, nothing happens there. Doublelift, though, is going to get spotted by Zion Spartan. Zion sees him. Arcane Shift gets him away. Yeah, I think Ezreal's safe here.
I think so, too.
He's getting closer, actually.
That was so close. At the very least, he's not going to die.
That's true.
He is not at a point yet, though, Doublelift, where he can threaten Zion Spartan.
No. He walked at him through a minion wave.
Double needs at least 6,000 gold more. He needs to finish his Iceborne Gauntlets, which he just built the Sheen of, and then he also needs a Last Whisper. This is the long haul for CLG.
So 4K left for those 2 items then right now. Coast starting to control different parts of the map now as well. Now that we're 24 minutes in, it looks like they're starting to take ward control of the left-hand side jungle and the route to Baron.
And it's just in a matter of containing CLG. And I don't know how willing Coast is to try a Baron against Big Fat LP because his track record of smites is so high.
But the catch comes off on a Daydream. This is not good for Nami, getting knocked around. Has to flash away. Still does not pop her ult. It finally does. The catch comes on. Shockwave hits no one, though. This could be the re-engage here for Coast. Do they want to go in? Spray and pray still coming across. Looks like CLG, no, nothing's going to happen for the rest of this for Coast, because Zion didn't make it in.
No, they were able to kill Daydreamin' before the Shen Shield popped out. And it's actually kind of beneficial, because I think Zion Spartan would have died if he made it in. The Shockwave was actually hoping for Zion Spartan when they killed the target and it wasn't in. But now CLG, feeling confident, might get caught out by that CC chain.
They just find Chowster right there. He put the lantern down, hoping to scare him away. He's like, I have an Orion. No, you don't. No, you don't.
I don't have any friends in that situation. Friendship was not there to save him here.
Moo, I'm so sad for you right there, but no friends for Chowster either. Zion Spartan, look at them. They're just like gigantic flaming people not dying. Trading blows, healing back to full health over and over.
One of them trades a lot better right now.
That's true.
And that is Zion Spartan. He can obliterate Nian in the straight-up fight. And this is that track record of smites for Big Fat LP. Can he make something happen here? Doublelift gives them a scout, and that's enough to scare out Coast. That was almost a bluff. The only thing CLG could use to scout that was the Jarvan flag. I guess the Orianna ball as well. So thinking about it again, Coast was smart to fall back.
You know what's interesting is you mentioned the Big Fat LP smite tracker, and you're right, he's one of the best smiters in LCS. Nintendo's the other really good one. Those
You're
are
right.
the two guys who like I feel like have the most steals and have the most impressive steals. I actually want to see a smite battle between these guys.
They're both going to smite at exactly the same time.
Both teams get Baron.
And we'll see everybody with Baron for the first time in LCS.
I don't know if there's ever teams that would do it. I think it's these guys. Bring in Cyanide to be safe, and then 15-man Baron from Fnatic. All right, guys. Zion Spartan, though, we saw him try to push down Nian. Unfortunately, he can't fight him under his turret. So Nian's actually pretty safe defending this one and not letting any major moves come in. And you keep track of those top laners. They've been equal the entire time. 13 minutes at this point, also pretty small. So you talk about CLG playing the farm game. They're keeping up in the farm game, straight up.
Absolutely. It's the objective game where Coast is trying to outpace them. And I actually feel like it's an overused term, like the ticking time bomb of CLG's composition, but that's what it is right now. If Doublelift can finish his items, I feel like that's when he's going to start picking up triple and quadra kills in these fights, because if CLG ever turns the tide on these fights, once Doublelift has the Iceborne Gauntlets and his Last Whisper, plus all the speed they get with Orianna, they're just going to chase down Coast and kill them in high control team fights, and that's what Coast needs to be terrified of right now.
They honestly should be. CLG is a team that pulls all kinds of crazy moves, but speaking of crazy moves, Coast was in with the Shadow, but they've got a pink ward down. The Jarvan, I don't know where he quite is on the map.
There's no Zac here as well, so even if CLG fights, it's a 4v5, and Big Fat has to go in for a completely single smite steal.
They've got to try for this one right here. The ball comes across. Blue team picks up Baron Nashor. That's a great pickup right there. Big Fat LP knocked into the air, pulls the Lantern though, and he's going to make his way out. But Baron picked up for Coast.
That was a very dangerous call by Coast, but a call I feel like they had to make. It's great that he was able to outsmite Big Fat LP, and now we'll see what Coast can do with this push. He didn't outsmite him.
Nintendo queued it though.
Oh,
Nintendo out bursted Big Fat LP. They did smite at the same time, but it was after Baron went down.
They smited at the same time, which was never
late.
which was never smiting. So about that smite thing.
I'm a good fortune teller, Jat.
See, this is why, hold on. This is why smiting is so difficult in League of Legends. Everyone thinks that like, oh, just wait for the health to go down to 800 or whatever your smite is at, and then hit the button. Little do they know, a lot of times that health never happens, because so much damage gets spiked onto the Baron at the very last second that sometimes you're smiting at 1500 to your reaction time, because it's going to get spiked from that point on. And at that point, both the junglers were a little bit off.
Yeah, I mean, Link Shockwave, like, it was a good time by Nintendo because he timed his Q for it. He did do the Q assassination, but Shockwave came across, Jarvan did some damage, Doublelift ulted by as well. You're right, the thing is hard, all right? Like, no smack talk to these guys, but the split push is back. And wait, I'm sorry, but Zion Spartan ulted into Baron, and it's already back.
What are you talking about?
Zion Spartan's ultimate, right? He ulted in.
There's no way he ulted into Baron. Because his cooldown, despite having the 20% CDR from a Spear Visage, it's still a 130-second cooldown.
It's been 2 minutes on Baron.
Yeah, but it was 123 seconds.
Oh, okay.
I feel like I don't think he would have done that.
I feel like okay. We're gonna move on, of course. So here we go, guys. The pressure on the top lane is here. The Baron buff being worn by Team Coast. He put down the pressure onto the minions, and they're looking for their next push with Zion still in the split.
Apparently you're right, Freak. He did ult into the Baron.
All right.
That's very
That Spirit Visage,
timing.
man. That Spirit Visage.
That's why all the Shens have been going for it nowadays. It's the windows that teams have to exploit you become much slower when you build that very high CDR item on Shen.
That's just a nice move, man. Zion Spartan's found a champion he's done well with, and it's good to see he's found something else to pick up. Second ban now required for Team Coast, I feel. And he's going to solo away this blue buff right here. 6-2 in kills, an 8,000 gold lead. Coast doing a very, very good job of continuing to strangle the map. You talk about the clock still ticking, and you're right.
Yeah.
But so far, every move they've made has worked out quite well.
I feel like the clock is actually ticking pretty fast on their Baron buff too. Because sure, the Baron buff is giving them extra gold advantage, but they didn't turn the Baron into any kills, which means they have to turn it into the objectives. And they've gotten all the easy turrets down so far. The hard ones are the ones that are defending the inhibitor, and that's the ones that CLG is the best at holding.
Yep.
Coast has about a minute left if they want to try one of those turrets, and I actually don't think they're going to be able to get it on this push. They might try, though.
So here comes the real test then. Can you get into Counter Logic Gaming's base? Let's see where these guys end up going. 3 members to the top lane. Shifter coming to rejoin them as well. Zion Spartan, though, still running across the map, so I don't know if they'll go in quite yet. The rest of CLG ready to wave clear. Bubble lands on a big fat. The CLG still holding their base strong. Coast, yeah, you're right. I don't know what the opening is. If CLG never leaves their base, there's no opening.
Yeah, especially since Zion hasn't even gotten the bottom lane to a point where it's pressuring any of the CLG turrets. CLG has no need to do anything. They know that fighting with Baron is a bad idea, even if they have all their AoE crowd control, unless Coast jumps on top of a turret and allows CLG free access to initiation.
I don't think they're going to let them do that. I feel like CLG are the kind of team that is very smart about the types of fights they look for.
Sometimes.
You're right.
They've had some struggles last week, actually,
fair.
against Curse, where they were very indecisive about their fights. And hopefully they've been able to remedy that a little bit this time, because this game, they've been very smart about fights they don't take.
And look at Zion Spartan. He puts one key strike and then goes, I don't want to get caught. He's being very defensive, very passive about taking damage right here, not wanting to get caught out at all. A little bit of Spiderling damage comes across. Double Lift forced to Arcane Shift around. A little bit of poke coming through. But actually, I feel like one difficulty here for Coast is Mashme doesn't get to hit turrets because he's so afraid of getting jumped on.
Exactly. Anything could crush Mashme at this point. He needs to save his range for spray and pray. And he's not going to use his ultimate on a turret just to get some damage on it. It's a difficulty of sieging with Twitch. And the Baron buff is gone now. So at this point, CLG will be more open to initiating a fight if they see an opportunity.
Oh, Zion Spartan, though. Oh, his Shadow Dash got knocked up there by Nien's E. But he's still above half HP, and a tanky Zac doesn't exactly burst a Shen out, so he gets to walk away and regen from this one. The stealth has just been used by Don't Mash Me. They're going to look for a little bit of a mini fight right here. Poke comes off on a Daydreamin'. A little bit of poke. No engage just yet. The flag toss down. Nope. Just the wave clear again for CLG. But at least Coast doing a good job of getting the minion farm from every one of these lanes.
These teams are very touch and go. And Zion Spartan will eventually out-sustain Nien because of that Blade of the Ruin King. But COG's so close to their base, I don't really think Coast is going to be able to pick up advantages after that. This is a situation where Coast has to catch someone by CLG off guard to create a fight that can win them the game. The goal lead is accelerating at a pretty good point for Coast, where they're feeling safe right now, but they have to proceed with a lot of caution because of how much weaker compositionally their 5v5 team fight is.
Well, so far their split has been a little bit successful. That bottom lane inhibitor turret that Zion Spartan's been looking at is down to half HP. So some of that movement is getting made, some of that pressure is coming through, and they're taking things down. The blue and red buff has respawned for Coast, and Baron and Dragon respawn in 40 seconds. So even if they don't go for the base, they're going to find a couple more things to grab to push forward a little bit more. And I got to imagine both teams have this Baron timed.
That's actually where Coast could look to get some good things to happen, because if CLG wants to contest the Baron and risk fall, or not contest the Baron and risk falling 15,000 gold behind, either way, that's where Coast will kind of get a bigger advantage. Double Lift is 1,000 gold away from his last Whisper right now, which is the point we identified as being what he needs to get to. But if he gets to that point and they're down 15,000 gold, it may just be too late.
You're absolutely right. So the Muramana completed as well, though. So maybe he can't put his team on his back. Maybe Link can do the same. He does have Death Cap. I mean, there's at least good items coming through for these guys. They just don't want to hit that 15,000 gold mark, as you mentioned. The Baron alive, and actually, interestingly, Coast rushing for it hard right here with Shen on the split.
And Link doesn't have his Void Staff. In fact, he has no magic penetration at all if we get a 5v5 fight here, but it seems clear that COD's at least going to try another steal.
Nien wants to go in right here. The Charm lands, and Big Battle P has not come across. Nien is alone right here. The Lantern comes across and saves him, but the team is still ready to battle. Here comes the smite. Blue team takes it, and Intended X grabbing that one in style. And now, oh my god, that Shockwave just stops Coast from chasing.
And again, a Baron smite off. This time, they both use the smite, and Intended X is the one to get it. So Big Battle P smited early. I think maybe it was actually the Q who got it. We never know.
I think it was Intended's Q.
We need Baron Death recap to tell us what got the last hit. But even so, that's what Coast needed, and unless CLG can heal up super fast, all home guard back, they're going to lose this turret.
A lot of pressure on it right now, down below half HP in the end, looking to initiate on, but they're going to wait for the kill first. The flash back from Mashme wanted to not get caught.
Ooh, no.
And the stun lands. The Lantern saves the end, and Coast have to think about, do they fight without Twitch ult?
That, if they could have caught Nien in that, they probably could have taken Inhibitor, and then the team fight could have finished off the game, but That's how tense it is right now for CLG. They can't make another mistake, and Coast needs to keep playing this incredibly safe, well-measured game that they've done throughout. They have had to win 2 Baron wars, essentially, just seeing who can spike down the Baron faster in order to get to this point. But now that they're here, it's about capitalizing on it and taking down CLG in their base.
They're going to keep looking for it right here. I do want to compliment CLG, though. In every time they went for that, like, Baron steal, they never died. Like, he went in and tried to get, tried the smite, didn't get the smite, but ran into 5 people and got out.
Those were some of the safest Baron steal attempts I've ever seen. Thresh enabled them to do that, specifically because of the teamfight control CLG possesses. They can engage and disengage, but they're just not strong enough to fight straight up. Maybe they'll go for it here.
They're looking for the poke right there. Nintendo a little bit low on mana right here. The inhibitor down to half HP. Other waves not yet pushing out into the base. Pink ward comes down. That's going to get cleared out.
CLG might actually give this inhibitor up and try to hold the other ones. That's how dedicated they are to the late game, and knowing that if they lose one fight, the game is over.
I suppose if you're fighting a Baron buff, you'd rather fight under your own turret.
Yeah.
At least that one actually shoots back, unlike inhibitors.
2 inhibitors down is generally the breaking point. So we'll see it soon. I hope. I hope Coast will go for the second inhibitor as soon as possible.
We have half an hour to go at CLG.
I mean, I think they had like one of the longest pauses here in the LCS.
Yeah.
They've had the longest game of the season, and maybe they'll give Coast their longest run for their money.
They definitely have a chance this one. I mean, here we go. Nintendo and Mashme putting more damage. That turret dangerously low. I feel like CLG might want to fight for this one. But Nian's got no HP. Danger gets caught.
There's no Orianna in this fight yet. CLG's fighting now.
Shen-Oh comes across. Big Fat LP. Nice tidal wave back as well. 1 kill picked up. Nien forced to flash away. Burning down. Shifter gets the catch. 2 kills picked up. Flash Tart lands on a double lift. Double lift's trying to get away. Shockwave lands a bunch of damage. Mashme falls down, but so does Link. Oh, Ezreal catches 1, 2 for 3 so far in the fight, but Coast have enough to take the inhibitor down, and now double lift on the chase. Can he get Nintendo'd? This is not too good for Coast, honestly. Oh, Zion using Blade of the Ruin King to kite away.
That Blade of the Ruin King, Shen, giving them the escape, and that's the 2 inhibitors that Coast has taken down. It was a strange time to fight for CLG because the whole game, CLG had Nien countering Zion Spartan to stop that one. But during that fight, they had Link defending against Zion Spartan, and that didn't allow enough combo initiation for CLG, so they actually lost their front line by the time Link landed that good shockwave and ended up losing the fight 3 for 2. That still showed, though, the potential of that CLG team fight and why Coast took so long to go into the base.
It's definitely a scary team here for Counter Logic Gaming, and I know you talked about the second inhib down being a big breaking point, but at the very least, if I have my numbers right, the inhibs will be back more or less by the time Baron respawns, and maybe that just gives CLG enough map presence to be okay. Double F forced to run away from Zion Spartan. Certainly he's having a rough time of this one. The Shen, 1-0-4, pretty scary dude. CLG still trying to farm back up.
You could say this game is slightly lower kill than our last one.
A little.
Yeah, last one is a 34-minute game with about 3 million kills.
Yes.
This one's a little longer with slightly fewer kills. And
More minion kills at least.
There's many more minion kills.
So if you like those.
CLG does lead the league by a substantial margin in minion kills, just because of the length of their games and because the style they play. They just love to farm.
Yeah, the mechanical skills certainly very high up there as well, but Zion is locking at the front door of the Nexus itself. His ult about 5 seconds away from being up, and he just kind of feints away from double lift. Look at that, puts more damage down to half.
And Coast doesn't need to wait for the Baron because the minions are providing so much for them right now. Double lift trying to stop Zion Spartan, that's a hard duel.
This is a very difficult fight for Double. Tries to kite this one out.
Oh,
he gets it. Double lift, 1v1 against Zion Spartan, and there's the engage on the other side, 4v4. Nien, nope, just gonna get Lantern back in, doesn't want the fight, but that's big for CLG.
Double lift kind of saved the day there. If he wasn't able to kill Zion Spartan 1v1 and at least make it seem like Zion Spartan would want to stay in that fight with him, that 4-man push would have just overtaken this third CLG inhibitor and effectively ended the game for Coast. But because he held them off, it might give CLG enough time for those inhibitors to respawn.
So here we go. Dragon is up, inhib's coming up soon. Baron 1.5 minutes away. We'll see what the openings end up being here. As don't match me, though. For what it's worth, Coast still do have control over both jungles. This is something they've actually been controlling very successfully now for the last, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's helped them get a bit of an extra lead here. Double F, I don't think, has worn a red buff like all game.
But at least he's got the Iceborne Gauntlets,
yeah.
so he doesn't care anymore. He's wearing the
bigger
Iceborne
slow.
gauntlets.
Yeah,
I was going to say, like, he's wearing a bluish buff because they're blue, but that would just get way too confusing. That was the true shot we talked about earlier.
Sick blue buff steal.
With the Baron coming up in a minute, I feel like Coast isn't going to try what they just did again with Silent Spartan and instead go for the next Baron. I don't think CLG will be able to contest the next Baron either, only because the super minions will have such strong presence in their base. But once again, that low cooldown, and because Silent Spartan didn't use his stand, he died in the last fight. You know, maybe I was just saying that for nothing, and Coast is going to go right now. CLG might not let him.
They get the cocoon, though, on to land. Nian does not want to initiate. The bubble lands on it.
Oh,
Holy
wow.
crap, the damage there from Shifter. This could be the opening. Pull lands on a Nintendo, but he is a tanky spider. Repels into the air, jumps down to that one lone minion. Double will not get to follow up, so that is an Ezreal down.
Even though Baron is up in 15 seconds, this could be a great opportunity for Coast to go in. They win this fight, they win the game.
The turret down low on HP. They've got minions as well. Cocoon does not land. They've got to be aware of the Shockwave. They catch Chouster. Shockwave does not land onto anyone, and one goes down. The initiation onto Mashme. Mashme is safe, though, and into the back line goes Zion Spartan, locking up Double Lift. So many kills picked up right here for Team Coast, and they are just destroying the CLG lineup. Shifter forced to run away from Nian. This might be a kill picked up for CLG. Big shutdown right there, but control over the inhibitor is Coast's. They've got a 4 versus 3. They've got Rain over the base.
And they're able to get the respawn on the inhibitors as well, which are now indefensible after the lost fight by CLG. Coast actually can't end it right now, I don't think, because CLG has 3 carries up, but it's definitely going to be close.
They're looking to do at least some damage. They're riding in after super minions. Nintendo looks for a little bit of wave clear right there. A bit of poke coming across, but that double lift, it's scary. The bubble does not land. They get some damage, though. Nian comes on in. Zion a bit low. Nian still getting chased down, getting smaller and smaller. Good true shot barrage comes across.
And the minion waves are coming in faster and faster. Coast finally backing off, but the minion waves are going to be what keeps CLG in their base for the long term.
And they're just running away. Zion getting away safely right there. Double lift forced to defend a bit. One of the inhibitor does come back on, and we're about to hit that average CLG game right here.
Just an average game.
Just an average game for CLG. No big deal. And now
450 minion kills on double lift.
Yeah, not
it's a walk in the park.
Standard stuff. Standard stuff for these guys. And actually, despite how long that game has been, he's still kept up with the 10 minions per minute. It's that mark that's like, yeah, you've been farming really well. You've gotten 10 per minute right here.
But as we saw in the pre-match, Don't Mash Me has the performance against CLG. So even though CLG's been giving Double Lift more of the farm, Don't Mash Me actually has more gold than Double Lift right now. He's at almost 17,000 gold on Twitch, highest gold in the game. And you can't argue against Coast's performance here. They have been playing it safe. So when they do win this game, which I feel like it's almost in the bag at this point, they should feel very satisfied with it.
And Daydream puts up enough wards to make sure no true shot barrages will steal. So nothing's going to land this time. Nintendo does smite this one away. And there we go. 3rd Baron now for Team Coast. They could clean up Dragon, but it just is not worth it for them. They look instead towards what looks like the middle lane.
The last stand here for CLG. I almost feel like the minions are more of a problem than Coast at this point, because when you have so many minion waves just knocking down on your base, it becomes exceedingly difficult to clear this away. CLG, if they can find an opportunity, should actually try to do a hard initiate before Coast can set up their minion wall.
They might just go in. Here he goes. He gets the shot over to Mashme. Mashme forced to run backwards, gets a stand united, but there comes a dunk in from Jarvan. Nintendo, though, just getting into the fray of everybody. 1 kill picked up on a big fat LP. The box comes across from Chouster. They want to kite on back. Double kill picked up for Mashme as he takes down the Zac as well. And now Double has been slowed. Has to cut away from Nintendo. Does not land the stun right there, but Ruin King's going to let him kite back. Zion Spartan lands the taunt. The flake comes across. Triple kill for Don't Mash Me. And this is going to be the game. Team Coast finally closing it out, finding the opening they wanted, and this is going to be their Nexus.
And Coast now moves to 3-0 on the season against CLG, and a much-needed win for Coast. They come into this week in 7th place and need to position themselves now for the playoffs. That win means so much for Coast.
Exactly. It ties them for 6th with Dignitas. They are now, as long as they just hold on, if they can beat Dignitas in a heads-up match, if they have one left in the season, they can pretty much guarantee themselves a playoff spot. If Coast wins out, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, that was a really well-played game, though. You look at this, you look at the players, that's relief on their faces.
It was, CLG definitely made Coast work for that one.
Oh, yeah.
This was a very close to CLG's game at the end of last week against Vulcan, except this time CLG never got that team fight to turn it around because Coast was always playing it smartly and had the Baron control, which that was the deciding point in this game, really, because CLG was stalling it out to at least make it a game of smites, and Nintendodex and the rest of Coast, whether or not he always got his smite off, won it.
Did manage to take them. I think he did actually get killing blow at least for all of them,
Yes.
so might not have been smite, but Nintendo got it himself. Good
smite?
play. Good play by him. So very good job then by Team Coast. And after that, we've got to take a short break. But when we return, Team Coast's Daydreaming will join us to talk about taking down CLG for the 3rd time this season. Then it's time for our 3rd game of the day, Vulcan versus Velocity. So don't go anywhere. The North American League of Legends Championship Series will be right back.